This video is sponsored by Espresso.
So when you have to make a decision to eat food, which is happening multiple times a day, you are making basically a choice between three options. You can eat or take out food, you can make food completely from scratch, or you can do something semi-homemade, kind of in between the two. Now, as a pro home cook, my goal is to stay as far on this end of the spectrum as possible. But with the realities of life, that is just not physically possible. So a lot of times I am making something semi-homemade. And today I'm gonna be showing you 4 of my favorite recipes that use a few key pre-made ingredients from the store that give me that slight edge and ability to bring meals together when I'm really rushing and only have like 10 minutes to cook. So if you've watched this channel before, you know that noodle soups are a huge part of my home cooking practice. I have made so many different versions over the years, but this one right here is by far the quickest. I can bring 2 bowls of this noodle soup to the table in 10 minutes, and it needs a little bit of that semi-homemade help. First up, so you need some type of instant noodle or quick cooking noodles. These are rice noodles that will cook just in hot broth. Pour it over, let it sit, and you're good to go. I love instant cooking rice noodles. You're gonna need some type of stock. I'm using a roasted chicken stock that I made, but you can buy one from the store, no problem. You need miso paste. This is homemade. I did an entire video on that, but I am well aware that most normal home cooks will not be making miso from scratch. So just some store-bought miso, and finally some chili oil. Really any type of chili oil or aromatic oil will work, but this is gonna be huge to build flavor in the broth. And then on the fresh side, I just have some bok choy that I just picked from the garden, and some of these little enoki mushrooms that I love because they cook in minutes. But this is super customizable. Any quick cooking veggies will work. So the first thing I'll do is just get a bowl of water. And if you're using rice noodles specifically, I'll take out the portions that I want. 1, 2, and just let them soak and soften in there. That took 15 seconds and is gonna help these noodles cook a lot quicker. Now I generally start my noodle soups off by sauteing some type of aromatic, but we don't have time for that. So I'll just dump in the stock right into the pan and start heating that up. And I've got some residual fat and goodness in there. So I'll add that back with some water. And I'm just eyeballing 2 portions right now, which should be good right there. Now we're always multitasking. Not even an option if we want meals in 10 minutes. So for these mushrooms, just cut off that bottom piece and just break them apart with my hands. That's why I love these. They're so easy to prepare. Pop them into a bowl. And this is smaller bok choy, but I still want it in little bite-sized pieces. I love this little baby leaf size, but this needs to come down. So I'll just rough chop these. There you go, a little chunkier. Pop that in the same bowl as the mushroom. So the broth is slowly coming to a simmer. We've got our beautiful miso here, and a lot of the flavor is coming from this miso. So it's helpful to get a good quality miso paste. Just a few scoops of that. So now we have our miso base, and I don't want to overcook the miso, so I'm just gonna go right in with all of these veggies. And now these veggies will only take 2 minutes to cook. We're basically just blanching everything. The last thing you want is overcooked bok choy in your soup. I'll taste the broth. That's plenty salty, but if you need salt, you would add it at this point, and done. I'll turn that off. So to plate it up, 2 bowls. Look how soft these noodles are. They're ready for some hot broth. I'll just split them up, and then I'll ladle on that soup. So almost nailed the 2 portions there. Yeah, got it. Now comes this chili oil. If you don't want spicy, you could do like a ginger scallion oil. I just made that in a recent video. I'll just layer that on. And then finally, I have some scallions from the garden that I forgot to chop up. So I'm just gonna get some scissors and pop those right on top. And then what I like doing is just popping some cover on that for maybe 1 or 2 more minutes just to capture that steam and cook those noodles through. So let's give this a taste. Looks like I went a little heavy on the spicy here. Noodles, perfect. All about timing. Honing in on how to get perfect rice noodles is so crucial for a bowl like this. The first thing it reminds me of is kind of a bowl of instant noodles that's just a little bit elevated. This is not a masterful execution right here, but you don't always have to be a hero in the kitchen. For me, between the veggies, the broth, the noodles, and some really nice flavor, in a rush, I'm taking this any day of the week. And actually, this is my first meal of the day, so I am just gonna eat this for lunch. My favorite part about homemade miso, the very bottom of the bowl. That was good. So before we get into the next recipe, I want to tell you about today's sponsor, which is Flair Espresso. And this machine right here has slowly been changing my life. Because for me, espresso is by far my coffee drink of choice. And over the last few months, I just haven't been able to tune into a good shot of espresso with my automatic machine that I've had for years. And then I got this thing right here, the Flair 58 Plus, and everything changed. This is a manual hand-pressed espresso maker, and instantly when I started using it, I felt a much different connection to the espresso making process. The closest thing that I personally can relate it to is like making sourdough bread from scratch. There's just a much more intuitive feeling and connection to the espresso making process. When I was using it, I could get that real life feedback that made it much easier to adjust and really get a perfect shot of espresso. And I don't know about you, but I had seen these types of manual espresso setups on Instagram, and for me, I thought you needed to be some type of like wizard to do that at home. But honestly, with a few tools and a little bit of practice, I was quickly making espresso that was holding up to the coffee shops, like the best stuff I had tasted. And this Flair 58 Plus is their high-end model, but what's great is that you can get into the manual espresso game with one of their base models starting at $100 and still make amazing espresso. So you can click the link below in the description to visit Flair's website, and you can also subscribe to their newsletter to save $10 on your first purchase above $125. And I will be taking this espresso shot right here and using it coming up soon. So next up is a Mediterranean grain bowl that I call on all of the time when I'm in a rush. And it can take a lot of different forms, but the star of the show is this stuff right here. 10-minute Farro. See that 10 right there? We're gonna get that started immediately. This is a Mediterranean grain that makes a really solid foundation, and this is the quick cooking version that makes things so much easier. You could also replace this with an instant rice as well, some type of instant grain. And then where things get real semi-homemade are various dips that you can get in any supermarket. Got a pesto here, I've got hummus, some store-bought sauerkraut. Sometimes I have these things homemade. Many times I do not. So having a few of these little side flavor enhancers in the fridge, so much easier to bring together a meal. And then all I have to do on the fresh side, here I've got some eggplant and some peppers. Both were fresh from the garden, kind of the last summer ingredients just hanging on for dear life. And then I have some young spring onion from the garden. And then finally some eggs, just to bulk it up, add a little protein to the mix. All right, so like I said, we're gonna start off with this Farro, dump that right in, and just cover it with water. You don't have to be really specific with the measurements, which is why I love Farro. We can always drain off water if we need to. And then immediately I'll just grab a wok or a fry pan, and I'll get that on the burner preheating. And I'm gonna start prepping veggies, and it's really not about the specific type of vegetable. It's just about sauteing up whatever you have on hand. It's really a Mediterranean veggie bowl at its heart, and anything will get the job done. And this is what you call like a super ugly rough chop. Again, I don't have time to be really precise here. I'll chop off the flesh from the seeds here, and then rough chop the pepper. Saba. All right, pepper, and then I'll take just the white part of the onion, cut that in half, and just slice that up. And that's all going together with these veggies. Oh boy, we are boiling over a little bit. Turn that down just a little bit, and I'll let this cook at a nice rolling boil until it's pretty much tender. Little olive oil in the pan. And we wanna go pretty high heat here because we're trying to get this meal together quickly. And I won't salt these until they start browning. The salt will pull the moisture out quickly and they won't get as much color on them. Now these veggies should take about 5 minutes to cook. So we need some more pan real estate in the meantime. I'll just preheat this pan, and we're gonna crack some eggs in there and just fry them up. I think when in doubt, when you feel like you might not have enough to make up a full meal, just fry up a few eggs. That's at least how I do it in my kitchen. Salt, pepper. Since we're going Mediterranean now, sprinkling on some za'atar spice. And then when those are crispy, give them a quick flip, just for a little over easy. Turn the heat off and get those off. Crispy za'atar spiced eggs. Now we're about 6 minutes in, still spilled a lot of water in there. So I'll keep the lid off. I'm just gonna try this. Tiny bit chewy. So I'll just keep cooking that with the lid off, and we should be good in the next few minutes. Now back to this stir fry, nice and brown. This is where I'll season the veggies with a little bit of salt. That's all it needs. Turn that off, and we can start plating. So I'll go in first with some of these veggies, just on the side. We're just crafting up a bowl here. This is where we bring in those side condiments. So a little spoonful of pesto, spoonful of hummus, anything you like, anything you have. I do love some type of pickle or fermented item like sauerkraut. Actually, I just realized I have a few pickled peppers in the garden left. Now this is pretty cool with this farro, it just finished. And basically, since I let it cook with the lid off, there's zero liquid in the bottom. All of it evaporated or absorbed into the farro, and you've got this super tender grain here. I'll pop that into that last little section and then top it with that fried egg. Quick 10-minute Mediterranean bowl. Now I have an entire video on Mediterranean meal prep where everything is made from scratch, which is not what this is. But this is still gonna be extremely nourishing and a wonderful, healthy meal that's pretty diverse. So of course it's not the most exciting thing I've ever made, but it's probably one of those meals that, you know, I make the most at home because I love eating like this. Just kind of creating your own little bites with the hummus, with the pesto, veggies, the acidity from the pickles. I could eat like this every single day. And I do, a lot of the time. All right, next up is a salad that I make all of the time that kind of satisfies every craving at once. So if you don't know what you want to eat, make this salad and you will be satisfied. It's kind of like taking the most insane, delicious sandwich that's just loaded up with everything you want on it and reverse engineering that into something a little lighter in salad form. So the help we're gonna get is from this right here, which is store-bought pizza dough. A lot of markets now carry pre-made pizza dough, and you can see it's bubbled up. It's been in the fridge proofing, it's ready to go. And if I'm looking to make really good pizza, obviously I'm making pizza dough from scratch, but what I love making with these is just a quick flatbread. They will do the job. And then also just dressing of any kind. I've got a nice Caesar dressing that I love, and then I've got some bacon here that I actually made recently. This is a block of halloumi cheese. This stuff is incredible because it fries up into a crispy form, which makes your salad so much more satisfying. And then for the fresh, you can really use anything you want. I've got a little piece of cucumber here, some tomatoes from the garden, and then finally, look at these beautiful greens. If you saw my recent garden video, you know I put in a high tunnel recently, and the greens have been popping off. It's like a salad bar in there, basically. So they're almost in a sort of microgreen state right now. So I just went in this morning, picked a bunch of those, cleaned them off, and they're ready for the salad. So this salad can come together very quickly with just some strategic moves. I'm gonna get my nonstick pan preheating right away, and then I'm gonna prepare the halloumi and the bacon. And the halloumi is really simple. I'll just take a few slices off and then chop that into little cubes. Again, this stuff is very dense, like a super dense mozzarella meets feta, but you can grill it or fry it, which is awesome. And then for the bacon, I just need a few strips of that. I think 3 will do the job. Now for some speedy cooking, I'm gonna take this over to the air fryer. I'll layer in the bacon and then pop the halloumi on the other side. Give that a quick spray, quick mix, and those will cook together. I'll do 385, 8 minutes. And then I will clear this board, get a little bit of flour on there just to roll out the flatbread. And this is getting chopped up for me into little croutons, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Just basically so it fits the pan, which done. I'll hit the pan with some oil and I'll get that cooking on there. And then I'll clean off this flour while that's cooking. Bring back in my board to prep veggies. I'm gonna take out a bowl to prepare the veggies. And you can see this is already frying up pretty nicely. I'll chop up some tomatoes into just quarters. Cucumber. It's funny because the timer on the air fryer is basically my timer for a 10-minute meal right now. And we're ready to flip this thing. And then these salad greens, they might need a little rough cut. They're not fully micro. Boom. So we got the fresh. This probably needs 2 more minutes. We'll check in over here. Sounds good. See how that fried up. I'm just gonna keep it going because it needs that extra 50 seconds for that bacon. All right, here we go. Take off these pieces of bacon, get the halloumi out, just let it cool for a second before it goes into the salad. This flatbread is done. We won't need all of that. What I'll do is just take off a nice chunk of this, pop that back on there, and I'm just creating little croutons. And you get these beautiful little croutons. Chop this up too. This is what I'm talking about when I say craving satisfier. We got your protein, we got your crispy, cheesy element, and your carbs right here. You mix this into any freshness like this, and that's what makes a salad edible. Finally, hit it with your dressing. I do think this salad works so well with a Caesar, but a nice vinaigrette, you know, something super light will work as well. Give it a mix. These ramen bowls serve as salad bowls for me as well. And it's still a little warm, which I don't mind at all. As long as you eat it fresh, because of course over time, these delicate greens will wilt down. Look at all those goodies.
So pretty simple flavor profiles here. Again, just kind of reversing a sandwich, but sometimes you just need those reliable dishes. And for me, this is definitely that dish when I don't have a lot of time to cook.
Then you get extra flatbread. So I'll turn this into peanut butter and jelly for my kids, or, I mean, it's flatbread. You can do a lot with it.
So for this last recipe, I thought it'd be fun to cap it off with a dessert. Can we make cookies in 10 minutes? Obviously, we're using the help from a store-bought cookie mix, which is gonna take out most of the time, but we're taking the flavor up with just a few special ingredients.
So I'm basically just gonna follow the box recipe here, but replace the milk or liquid with the espresso shot that I brewed earlier. And this is a chocolate chip cookie mix. I'll add a few tablespoons of butter and just work that in. Then I'll crack in 1 egg, dump in that espresso shot, give that a mix until I've got my cookie dough. Obviously, this could sit in the fridge and cool down, but we don't have time for that. So I'm gonna use some parchment paper, and they're going straight into the air fryer for the quickest cook possible. And I'll set the air fryer for 350 degrees for about 8 minutes. All right, we're a little bit early right now, but let's check in. Oh my, wow. Who said you couldn't make a quick cookie? Let's get these off. Let's see what we got here.
Wow. So I would say maybe closer to 12 minutes on that cookie, but I mean, a 12-minute cookie, pretty impressive.
Absolutely delicious.
That infusion of coffee flavor is subtle, but it reminds me of any type of coffee dessert.
I just keep eating this cookie with a lack of words right now.
So those are some of my favorite personal semi-homemade meals. Comment in with your favorites below and check out Farro Espresso in the description.